we all know how hard it is. I mean, just to get to the big leagues. I guess that's where my mind kind of has been, is like, man, I can't believe, I'm still here 10 years later. I mean, I think on the outside, you're like, oh, well, these guys are just going to go out there and perform. I think that's what everyone thinks. I mean, I remember speaking at Texas State and then be like, when did you know you made it? And I'm like, I'm scared every year I'm going to, this could be my last year. So it's a healthy fear. And I think that keeps you motivated to get better because you know how hard it is. And I think that's where guys that say that's where they're coming from, because you know how good the other 700 plus players are, plus the guys in the minor league. You're always adapting in order to perform. I think from the outside, they just see like, oh yeah, he just goes out there and plays every year and you do the same thing. If you do the same thing, it's impossible to have sustained success, or at least to keep getting better. It is really cool, honestly. And, it's a milestone that you hear about when you're in the minor leagues and first get in the big leagues and it's happening. And I've been part of times where guys have got to that milestone and, you get to, kind of celebrate with them or tell them congratulations. I mean, we all know how hard it is. I mean, just to get to the big leagues. I guess that's where my mind kind of has been, is like, man, I can't believe, I'm still here 10 years later. It still feels like yesterday I was in the minor leagues and just trying to make it or survive, moving on. You want to keep going. It's not like, oh, here's my goal. Okay, now I'm good. You want to keep playing and keep producing, because, I mean, that's what it's all about, and trying to win the World Series, of course. I think I was pretty realistic about, my expectations. I got drafted and, was going to go give baseball a shot, but by no means did I think getting to the big leagues was guaranteed, or even, making a career out of it. So, I always had a backup plan. I went back to school, finished my college degree. I mean, I never take it for granted. Still don't. I mean, every year you have to go out there and prove yourself. I think that's, it's a great thing. You don't want to take it for granted. You always want to, get better. I think that storyline that it was an 8th round pick and it's like this crazy, I don't know, crazy is not the right word, but it was a longer shot. I don't care if you're the first overall pick. It's hard to really get to the big leagues and then have a long career. So I think I'm in the same boat as everyone else. And I think that's what makes, being able to produce over a decade, or being able good enough to stay in the big leagues for a decade, what makes it so special. To just be able to still do it is a big honor. I'm very focused on blocking out any distractions, so I never really concern myself too much with what the scouts said or other people said. And it's not like they're coming up to you and telling that to your face. I mean, if you buy Baseball America, I guess you could find out what people think about you, but I purposely didn't do that. I mean, even now, I really, purposely, I don't read what's out there about me or our team, or really a lot of teams, for the reason that can just be a distraction, and just trying to do my best to perform. I think that's just kind of one of the things I've done to just allow me to focus each day and not get distracted. I mean, when you're good, everyone wants to tell you how great you are. And when you're struggling, they tell you you're worse than you really are. So being able to try to be consistent, which is a big goal of mine, means trying to block out those comments that are outside your control. I think as far as dealing with failure, a lot of it happened, like you mentioned, not being a high pick. There was more failure built in at the amateur level, even though I had success. But, you're playing with guys who get drafted higher than you, or go to bigger colleges, or have more success. There was a lot more failure in my kind of younger years, which then as I got into pro ball, I think really helped prepare me, and I still think that was probably the biggest thing I learned in the minor leagues, was how to deal with failure, because you just can't perform like you did at the college and high school level. But I think that prepared me a lot more for then when I got to the big leagues. Of course, the struggles I had. If you're going to say there was one time, I think probably my last year in Arizona, which was 2018, I got off to a really bad start. I think I was hitting like under 200, right around 200 the first couple of months through the season. And I was, it just is what it is. I wasn't performing. And so I was kept working and working, but there's definitely a time where you're like, man, this game's really hard. So, maybe, I wouldn't say maybe this is it, but you had to, who knows how long you're going to play this game. So I was able to, bounce back and play a lot better. I still had confidence in myself, but you just know some things are out of your control, or, you're kind of wondering what's going on. But I ended up, playing well the rest of the year, and which is what I was trying to do. And, it was just hopefully happened to be just a couple, 2 worst months of my career, which was ironic because I followed up with the best month of my career and maybe the best 2 months. And so it's just funny how the game works out like that. When I first got called up, every guy in the big leagues, you've been watching them on TV. So they're all, guys that you look up to. And, I think facing guys on the other team in order to perform, I had to trick myself that they weren't these guys I was watching on TV. I think I remember doing that a lot. Is just pretending they were someone else. But as far as once I started getting to first base, and these guys, the position players that I'm not kind of competing with or competing against, but, we're in the same spot as hitters, I for sure was trying to pick their brains and stuff like that. Probably, the most nervous, or maybe the only time I was nervous, one of my favorite players growing up was Lance Berkman, and he got to first when he was with the Rangers. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool moment, because I watched him play for such a long time. I grew up in Houston, and he was with the Astros for such a long time. And so that was the one player I played against that I just watched almost on a daily basis. And so I took that moment and it was like, this is really special. I never thought this would happen. And he knew who I was. He knew that I was from Houston. So it turned out to be really cool. Lance is an unbelievable guy. We've become friends, after he retired, with him playing for the Cardinals and just having mutual friends around the game. Consider him a friend, and he's been around. But other guys early, I remember when I made the All-Star team, Joey Votto was starting at first base, and he was, one of the best first basemen of the game. So just being able to take ground balls with him at the All-Star game in 2013 and talk to guys at first base. I'm still trying to do that. A guy comes over there who I like the way he hits or something, I'll try to ask him some questions and try to keep learning and getting better. Whether it's an achievement or what you have, it's more of a credit to the people around me than even me. I had such great mentors and coaches and teammates that, everything I learned was from someone else. Whether it starts out, even before that, I just think about my parents, my dad, the lessons they teach me. I had coaches in the minor leagues that then coached me in the big leagues as well. Turner Ward was a huge mentor to me. He was my manager in AA, and then eventually one of our hitting coaches in Arizona. Alan Zinter was a hitting coach I had in the minor leagues. Even when I got called up, Kirk Gibson was our manager. Don Baylor was our hitting coach. Matt Williams was there. These are guys who had really long and successful careers. And you talk about the 10-year mark, we had a lot of veteran players on the team that kind of took me under their wing. Lyle Overbay was another first baseman, and he was great to me. And we were kind of competing, I guess, in the sense of for playing time. And Willie Bloomquist and JJ Putz, I had my locker in between them. And Jeff Blum was there. Aaron Hill and I would work out together every day in the off season at 6 a.m. So he kind of showed me, or helped mentor me in the off season. I'm sure I'm forgetting guys. John McDonald was there. These guys, when I got called up to see, I just named 6 or 8 guys who all had 10 years. That doesn't happen as much anymore. And those guys showed me how to be a big leaguer, and they made the learning curve so much quicker than I could ever imagine. I think that's the great thing about experience. If you use it the right way, that even though it doesn't show up in the stat line, you're helping the team, or you're helping other players perform, which helps a team. And I had so many guys that did that. So any credit I get, a huge amount goes to those guys that I mentioned and many, many more. I say sports are a metaphor for life. There's so many great things about sports. Baseball is my favorite, but you can put any sport in there. Dealing with failure, teammates, just the humility of it, dealing with success, even how to work with others, hard work, all these different life skills that we all value so much. I think sports really bring it out. We're obviously out there trying to win, but I think why we love sports and why it's so good for kids and for our communities and for really the world is because of all these life lessons that come out in it. So exploring that and seeing how we can maybe spread that idea is something, I'd like to work on over the next few years and kind of see where that takes me when I'm done playing.